morning. You're watching DD India and I'm Preeti presenting News on the Hour, a show which we get for you every morning to make sure that you keep yourself abreast with everything that's making it to the headlines. First, we get to the top stories. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaches Glasgow to attend the COP26 Summit. Says he looks forward to working with other world leaders on mitigating climate change and articulating India's efforts in this regard. Climate finance, carbon markets to top India's agenda at COP26. G20 Rome Declaration reaffirms extensive COVID immunization as global public good, commits to refrain from WTO's inconsistent export restrictions and to increase transparency and predictability in delivery of vaccines, committed to the Paris Agreement goal to hold the global average temperature increase. India pushes and obtains commitment from G20 for improving of livelihoods for small and marginal farmers. Efforts to be made to help optimize the process and procedures of WTO for vaccine approval and emergency use authorization. Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia to chair review meeting on dengue situation in Delhi today. All schools reopen in the states of Kerala, Tamil Nadu from today, functioning of 1st to 8th standard classes on rotational basis. Delhi schools reopen with 50% capacity from today. And Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's coalition kept a comfortable majority in Sunday's parliamentary election despite losing some seats as his weak-soiled government grapples with a COVID-battered economy and regional security challenges. All right, we begin this edition of News on the Hour with COP26 Summit, which kicks off in Glasgow. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reached Glasgow, the port city of Scotland in the United Kingdom, to attend COP26 Summit. Climate finance, carbon markets are among India's top agenda at COP26. Over 30,000 delegates and leaders from more than 100 countries are participating in the climate summit to discuss climate action and mitigation of global warming. On reaching Glasgow, Prime Minister Modi in a tweet said, and I quote him, "Landed in Glasgow, will be joining the COP26 Summit, where he looks forward to working with other world leaders on mitigating climate change and articulating India's efforts in this regard." Apart from COP26, Prime Minister Modi will also be holding bilateral talks with UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. As Prime Minister Narendra Modi reached Glasgow in Scotland to attend the COP26 Summit, he received a warm reception from the Indian community in Glasgow. Indian diaspora expressed happiness after meeting Prime Minister Modi, calling him a jewel of motherland India.
Jawano ka hai main Narendra Modi has arrived in Glasgow and was met with a rousing reception by the Indian diaspora. I've got with me some of these people who have been singing and are here to see Prime Minister. Sir, आप लोगों का कैसा लग रहा है? How do you feel to be meeting the Prime Minister himself?
Sir, it has been proud moment for all of us. We are representing Glasgow Indians and we are serving the whole community of all Indians.
We are coming in Glasgow and we do a lot of community work and we are happy and proud that Modi ji is in Glasgow.
हमारा नारा है भारत के बाहर भारत का निर्माण. ये हम कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि भारतीय जो भी इंडिया के बाहर हैं, we can try to help him settling in Glasgow.
हमने गाना बनाया हुआ है, हम गाना सुनाना चाहेंगे.
ये देश है वीर जवानों का, अलबेलों का, मस्तानों का, इस देश का यारो है, इस देश का यारो क्या कहना, मोदी है भारत का घेरा. What about you? You've been waiting here.
Yeah, I've been waiting here for almost 4 hours and it's been really exciting to see Narendra Modi from like 2 feet, so it's been really exciting.
What about you, sir?
No, it's a very good moment, I will say, because we're waiting for a long time, but this is really amazing moment for me, and we are so excited, you know.
We have one more song, It's been proud moment for whole Glasgow and whole Scotland, in fact.
It is definitely a proud moment for all these people who have been waiting for a long time to get a glimpse of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and that has happened. Taposh Bhattacharya from Glasgow. The much-awaited COP26 Summit kicks off in Glasgow. The summit aims to implement the Paris Agreement and ensure all nations achieve their net zero emission goals. That is critical. 120 heads of different governments and heads of state are attending the conference. We get 2 more details in this report ahead.
Glasgow is hosting the much-anticipated COP26 Summit that kicked off on the 31st of October. This summit is witnessing more than 30,000 delegates and leaders from more than 100 countries gather to deliberate on climate action and mitigation of global warming. Implementing the Paris Agreement and ensuring all nations achieve their net zero emission goals is critical. There are 2 major points that have been put forth by India, which is leading the least developing and the developing countries stand.
First is the finance and second is the technology transfer also, because if you want that world will work on it on the same level playing field, so it is must required that they will provide climate finance as well as the technology transfer to the developing countries, and that is the main issue in discussion will be discussed in the negotiation also. India has already adopted a policy which is environment friendly and which will be give a contribution for the targets achieved by the world, given by the all over world in last time also.
Ensuring just, equitable and prompt climate finance tops India's agenda.
Without this climate finance, it is very difficult for developing countries to attain their development goal and the green development at the same time. So we feel that climate finance is the crux for the negotiation in this particular COP. If climate finance is made available in adequate quantity, it is assured, it is additional, and there is a fair distribution and collection formula for it, so that we are assured that whatever is being promised that will be available, we can plan our green development accordingly.
Both these points have been put forth by India along with like-minded countries who wants the developed countries to walk the talk in this particular climate summit.
First thing is that $100 billion promised was done in 2009. It is not fulfilled till today. Second thing is, you are very much right, it is not enough in the today's circumstances. If we compare between 2009 and 2021, the world is going ahead, so it is not sufficient. As for the India's stand is concerned, we are very much, so many times we say that we will be the part of solution. India is ready to solve all the issues.
Solution to climate change is not just setting net zero carbon emission targets as proposed by developed countries, but rather these countries need to acknowledge their historic responsibility for emissions and protect the interest of developing nations and those vulnerable to climate change.
Our stand is that if we want to achieve net zero by 2050, then globally it should be net zero. That means not every country need to be net zero by 2050. Developed countries who have used carbon space quite a lot compared to their own need and their eligibility, they need to vacate that carbon space and leave it to the developing countries, including India. So we will be net zero, of course, but later after 2050, not in 2050. In 2050, developed countries have to be negative, and we will remain positive to be a global net zero.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is pressing for a shift in the discourse on climate change. Climate action, climate justice and climate finance must go hand in hand. With camera person Praveen Johar, this is Tapush Bhattacharya for DD India, Glasgow.
India, along with Australia, the United Kingdom and small island developing states, that is SIDS, will be launching a new initiative for infrastructure for resilient island states on the sidelines of the upcoming Conference of Parties COP26. Australia, India and the United Kingdom have committed an initial funding of $10 million. Our correspondent Tapas Bhattacharya gets us more.
Joining me is Gayatri Kumar, High Commissioner of India to UK. First and foremost, we'd like to ask you about the COP26 agenda. It's a huge event. Climate change is something that everybody's talking about, and COP26 is happening in Glasgow. What is going to be the major agenda here?
Well, of course, climate change and climate action with greater urgency. For India, it will be an occasion to launch two major initiatives under the International Solar Alliance and under the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. And of course, the fact that this meeting is happening straight after G20 in Rome makes it an occasion for the world to see how we can address the priority of economic revival alongside sustainable development through very, very good and urgent action on mitigating the impact of climate change.
Ma'am, Prime Minister is coming here. What kind of program can we expect in Glasgow? Indian community members are very keen to meet Prime Minister in person.
I think that is the only part where it will not be to the full expectation of the Indian community due to COVID restrictions, of course, and due to access restrictions, because this wonderful city is being prepared for so many delegations coming from around the world. Some of the members of the Indian community are coming to the hotel in the permissible number, and they will have the opportunity to see and to greet the Honorable Prime Minister. And of course, I'm looking forward to other occasions when we shall have the Prime Minister here on a full-fledged visit, and the entire Indian community, of course, will be watching now to hear the Honorable Prime Minister while he participates in COP26, and will be looking to the social media for his messages. So they will be participating in that way and welcoming the Honorable Prime Minister of India while he is here in the UK.
Ma'am, UK is having a bilateral with PM Modi. Boris Johnson will be meeting. What can we expect from that bilateral? I believe the work that is going on along with UK and Australia about managing the IRIS program, if I'm not wrong. So what is the latest from that?
That, of course, will be a very special initiative that will be launched under the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure Initiative. That is India and UK and Australia. And it will be a way of helping small islands and also developing states to cope with, to prepare for, to preempt a disastrous impact of natural calamities, and to make sure that we have green infrastructure, and to make sure that we have climate resilient infrastructure. An amount of $10 billion has been committed, and we hope that there will be lots of partners in that very soon. The bilateral agenda is going to be a review of the implementation
and of the roadmap 2030, on which a lot of progress has been made already since our two prime ministers met in May 2021, particularly in trade, in finance, in regional and global priorities such as vaccine, mutual recognition of certifications, of course climate action, and they will also discuss defense and security issues which are of common concern.
Appreciate your time. So that was the High Commissioner of India in UK. With Camperson Pimijal, this is Tapush Bhattacharya for TD India, Glasgow.
And representing the voice of youth, Disha Sarkar is all set for the much-awaited UN Climate Summit or the COP26 at Glasgow. Her main focus will be to advocate climate change. Disha is acting as the lead action for climate empowerment negotiator, and she has been engaged with United Nations Climate Change Secretariat and its youth constituency as an active and contributing member. Our correspondent Tapush Bhattacharya brings you more.
The youth are making their presence felt in COP26, and I've got with me some of them, especially from India. I've got with me Disha Sarkar, and also from Argentina, I've got with me Liz. And these are some of these young people, the young generation who are making their voices here at this COP26, because it is important that all the world leaders listen to their viewpoints, because COP26 deals with climate change and this impacts them a lot. Disha, what are you going to speak in COP26? You are going to represent the country.
Firstly, we the youth from the developing countries, especially India being a leader in the developing countries list, I believe that it's very important that we take climate action very seriously, and we give out this message that climate action now, we want robust actions in case of climate action. And plus I emphasize on climate education, climate training, public awareness, public participation and international cooperation. And me being from the youth constituency of the UNFCCC, I believe that youth voices need to be heard. Nothing about us without us.
Climate education and at the same time international cooperation. I've got with me Liz from Argentina. Liz, it is important that every country comes together and make it happen. What is your take on it?
Hello, India. So we come from Argentina and we are here on behalf of the civil society, and it's really important that both developed and developing countries come together to achieve their nationally determined contributions that they need to have submitted in 2020. Also, developed countries need to transfer the $100 billion that they committed to transfer to developing countries to be able to reduce their emissions and adapt to the impacts of climate change.
What about you? You came all the way also from Argentina. What are you looking forward to in this particular climate change summit?
In my case, hello. I'm from Argentina too, and for me it's very important to all the voices are together and fighting for the climate action, because all the reality are so different and all the people need to fight in this way and with necessities they have.
Appreciate. So these are the young voices, these are young people coming all the way around the globe in COP26. One voice, they are saying climate change is here, it is real, and everybody must come together in this fight. With cameraperson Praveen Johar, this is Tapush Bhattacharya for TD India, Glasgow.
The World Meteorological Organization has said that the extreme weather events, including powerful heat waves and devastating floods, are now the new normal. WMO's State of the Climate Report for 2021 highlights a world that is changing before our eyes. And according to the study, the 20-year temperature average from 2002 is on course to exceed 1 Celsius above the pre-industrial levels for the first time, and global sea levels rose to a new high in 2021. Now, these latest figures for 2021 are being released early by the WMO to coincide with the start of the UN Climate Conference in Glasgow, known as COP26.
Broken records in the main greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane and nitrous oxide, and despite of the lockdowns last year, the real atmospheric concentrations of those gases were growing, and we broke again a record in carbon dioxide concentration, and carbon dioxide is the most important greenhouse gas, contributing 2/3 of the warming so far, and its lifetime is very long. So that's the main problem that we are having when it comes to climate change and warming. And during the past years, since 2013, we have seen 4.4 millimeters sea level rise, whereas 20 years ago it used to be about 2 millimeters per year. So we have doubled the sea level rise, and this is very much coming from the melting of main glaciers.
The State of the Climate report provides a snapshot of climate indicators, including temperatures, extreme weather events, sea level rises and ocean conditions. The study finds that the past 7 years, including this one, are likely to be the warmest on record as greenhouse gases reach record concentrations in the atmosphere. The report said that the accompanying rise in temperatures is propelling the planet into uncharted territory with increasing impacts across the planet. World Meteorological Organization's Professor Petri Tallis detailed some of the extreme events that have been experienced around the world this year, like it rained rather than snowed for the first time on record at the peak of Greenland ice sheet. A heat wave in Canada and adjacent parts of the US pushed temperatures to nearly 50 degrees in a village in British Columbia. Death Valley, California reached 54.4 degrees during one of multiple heat waves in southwestern US. Months' worth of rainfall fell in the space of hours in an area of China. Parts of Europe saw severe flooding, leading to dozens of casualties and billions in economic losses. A second successive year of drought in subtropical South America reduced the flow of river basins and hit agriculture, transport and energy production. Climate activist Greta Thunberg has said that environmental protesters need to anger some people in order to enact change. In an interview to BBC, the 18-year-old Swedish activist said that as long as no one gets hurt, protests can be more effective if they annoy people, citing her school strike for climate movement as an example. Thunberg had joined protesters at a noisy demonstration outside the London offices of Standard Chartered Bank on Friday to demand that financial institutions stop funding the extraction of fossil fuels. She was joined in the narrow streets of the British capital's financial district by around 20 international climate activists from countries including Namibia, Philippines and Samoa, who are joining her at the United Nations Climate Summit COP26 in Glasgow. All right, now a quick roundup of the G20 Summit. The Rome G20 Summit concluded with the adoption of the Rome Declaration. Among several big wins for India and the developing world is an acknowledgement from the developed world that they had not done enough towards climate finance and technology transfers. In another major development, an agreement at 1.5 degrees cap on temperature rise has also been reached. G20 leaders also agreed to end public financing for coal-fired power generation abroad.
G20 leaders making a wish at the wishing well of the Trevi Fountain in Rome. A wish for the people, planet and prosperity to coexist and flourish. Day 2 of the 16th G20 Summit saw discussions around two crucial sessions on climate change and environment and sustainable development. Italy's Prime Minister and host Mario Draghi called on the nations to act now by reorganizing economies and cutting greenhouse gas emissions. Heeding his call, leaders of the world's biggest economies have agreed to end public financing for coal-fired power generation abroad. However, no target for phasing out use of coal domestically has been set. The countries, as part of the deal, also pledged to enhance, where necessary, their national emissions cutting plans for 2030.
we've decided to put coal behind us, starting with the international public commitment to eliminate finance for the new unabated coal, that all this finance will stop by 2021. Moreover, all G20 countries will commit to net zero emissions by mid-century. And we've moved much closer to the goal of reaching the $100 billion in climate finance to support vulnerable countries.
Under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, India has achieved key successes at the G20 Rome Summit on energy and climate, with focus shifting to actions that need to be taken, including by developed countries, to achieve climate goals. For the first time, the G20 identified responsible consumption and production along with provisions of finance and technology as critical enablers of achieving climate change goals. Prime Minister Modi's vision of promoting the mantra of sustainable lifestyles all over the world saw a reflection in the Rome Declaration. In a big win, India obtained a commitment from G20 nations to improve livelihoods of small and marginal farmers. On the health front too, mutual recognition of vaccines and streamlining vaccine approval processes under the WTO was broadly agreed upon, as has debt suspension. Another big win is the commitment to strengthen global supply chains to ensure better preparedness for future pandemics and other such global challenges.
This G20 has delivered a strong message of recovery from the pandemic, recovery in terms of the economy, and across different sectors like health, employment, education, tourism, and most significantly, climate action.
Earlier, Prince Charles told the world leaders at the G20 Summit in Rome that global climate conference beginning on Sunday in Glasgow was the last chance to save the planet. He was the main speaker at a side event on the role of the private sector in the fight against climate change.
It is only too clear that we will need trillions of dollars of investment every year to create the necessary new infrastructure and meet the vital 1.5 degrees climate target that will save our forests and farms, our oceans and our wildlife. Trying to form a global alliance amongst the private sector, as I have long believed it holds the ultimate key to the solutions we seek. That is why, Prime Minister, I am so grateful to you for recognizing this central truth and for bringing them in, giving them a seat at this most important table so that climate change can be tackled in partnership.
The presidency of G20 now shifts to Indonesia, which hands over the baton to India in December next year. What was achieved at the Rome Summit clearly sets the agenda for India's presidency of the G20 next year. This has set the tone for the COP26 conference at Glasgow. But what's most important is to see how far these countries are able to honor their commitments and intentions expressed here in Rome. With cameraman Rakesh Kumar, Amritpal Singh, DD India, Rome.
All right, so that was a roundup on the G20 summit. Very quickly, we'll get you the national updates also now. We begin by getting you an update on the vaccination drive. When we talk of the figures, then the administration of 12,77,542 vaccine doses has been completed, and the vaccine coverage, that was it in the last 24 hours, and the COVID vaccination coverage has exceeded 106.31 crore. A total of 106 crore 31,24,205 vaccine doses have been administered across the nation so far. Talking of the COVID situation from across the country, the recovery of 12,718 patients in the last 24 hours has increased the cumulative tally of recovered patients to 3,36,68,560, which means India's currently the recovery rate is at 98.2%. 12,514 new cases were reported in the last 24 hours, and the active caseload is 1,58,817 presently, which is the lowest in 248 days. Also, active cases constitute 0.46% of the country's total positive cases, which is the lowest since March 2020. The testing capacity across the country continues to be expanded. The last 24 hours saw a total of 8,81,379 tests being conducted. India has so far conducted over 60.92 crore cumulative tests. While testing capacity has been enhanced across the country, weekly positivity rate at 1.17% remains less than 2% for the last 38 days now. The daily positivity rate is reported to be 1.42%. The daily positivity rate has remained below 2% for the last 28 consecutive days. With the number of dengue cases rising in the national capital, Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia will chair a review meeting today regarding the current situation in the national capital. Officials from National Centre for Disease Control and National Vector-Borne Disease Control Programme will also be present in the meeting. Over 1,000 dengue cases have been reported from Delhi so far, out of which more than 280 cases were recorded last week. And that's it in this edition of News on the Hour this morning. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.